There's still a warmth and a good feeling that you have about yourself, of sharing, of cooperating, and caring about the other people in your community. And that quality, as we all express it, will be the thing that we remember the most coming out of this crisis.
It's time to change the world.
There's got to be a better way.
It's time for something better.
You feel like you can't really make a difference, but the fact is that you can.
We're telling the stories of people who are changing the world and how you can help.
We just need more companies that are out there solving these problems.
Businesses, nonprofits, artists, and individuals who have found a problem and then created a solution.
If we want to have real impact, we have to do it together.
You'll come away from every episode with action steps you can take to be part of that solution.
We're never going to feel satisfied and happy if we just stay the same.
We can each change the world every single day.
People can actually come together and build a future for themselves along with other people.
Our daily actions have a massive impact. So what will we do about it? We can remake the world. Because guess what? We can. Hi everyone, I'm Nathan Gardner, and this is We Can Remake the World, a podcast about people who are changing the world and how you can help. I wanted to start today's episode by asking you what you're doing to take care of yourself. It's no secret that we're all adapting to a lot of change, and it's so important to take care of ourselves and to build this idea of self-care into our day-to-day, I think. So I want to encourage you to go the extra mile for yourself and get extra rest as you need it. Get outside into nature as much as you can. Make space for meditation and exercise, whatever keeps you feeling centered and grounded and resilient. Because I think resilience is going to be a big theme for a little while. Not just when it comes to our physical health, but I definitely think resilience when it comes to our ability to just stay grounded and stay as positive as we can and stay focused on the long term, so we don't get caught up too much in the short-term difficulties, which of course we're all facing. Something that really helps me is finding opportunities to focus on others when things feel challenging for me. Focusing on others when you're stressed or worried or feeling overwhelmed can be like therapy, at least I've found. I feel just as powerless as anyone else right now by not being able to get out into the world and move around and connect with people and take positive action. But there's still so much that we can do through technology, through reaching out, or through donations if you're able to support organizations who are serving those in need right now. They could use our support even while we're at home. And even simpler than that, you could give some thought to what you can do to uplift someone else when you're feeling up to it, someone in your circle or in your community. This could be sending a quick hello, just checking in with people. I've always found it so helpful to get outside of myself and get outside of my problems when I'm stressed or having a tough day by focusing on someone else, by focusing on how I can be supportive to someone else in my life or in my circle of influence. And the other side of that, I think, is don't be afraid to reach out when you're the one who needs some uplifting. If you need to talk to someone, if you need to vent or just share your experiences with someone you trust, don't hold back from reaching out. There's nothing wrong with needing a little support. Try to find outlets for yourself for a little joy, a little relaxation, bake some cookies or color in a coloring book. Be productive on your own terms if it's going to be good for you. Learn something and connect with others as much as you can. Never stop reminding yourself also that we will get through this, and we may even come to the other side more connected than we've ever been, more interested in protecting and uplifting each other and getting through tough times together, more interested in tackling these problems we face in a cooperative way as a community. Times of difficulty, I think, often lead to times of unity. So see if you can be that voice of unity where you are, when you feel up to it. For today's episode, we've invited our most recent guest back to speak with us about all the work that she's doing during this unprecedented time to support others through her organization. And I hope you find it inspiring. I hope you find that it uplifts you in some way, knowing that there are people out there who are taking it upon themselves to be a support system in their communities no matter what. And I hope you enjoy. Continue to take care. We've got something really special for you today. Our last episode featured the story of Kim Buffington of Eden Gives, a nonprofit in Detroit, which is feeding families through food donation programs and food delivery. And they are currently planning their first phase of an urban farm designed to transform and uplift the local communities in Detroit with freshly grown produce and fresh food as the seed of something bigger to restore these local communities who really need fresh food and really need some new energy injected into their economies. Kim, the founder of Eden Gives, was generous enough to join me again for a second conversation around what Eden Gives is doing right now to serve the residents of Detroit who are in need of support when it comes to access to food. While many of us are slowing down and staying home, staying in, many nonprofits are kicking into high gear to support their communities who need them. And this is especially true for food donation programs, who are a lifeline to so many people around the country and around the world who are limited in their access to food, and especially during various stages of lockdowns like we're experiencing. Kim will talk about the importance of staying calm, not just for our own peace of mind and our own mental health, but also because of how panic and how we behave when we're panicked affects the most vulnerable people around us when resources become scarce. Kim will also tell us about the bravery of her volunteer team, who refuse to stop pitching in even when going outside feels like a risk in some areas. I'm so grateful for organizations like Eden Gives who are out there serving those in need right now more than ever, and I really hope that you'll consider donating if you can to support Kim and her team's work, or donating to support another organization closer to you who's making an impact and making sure that we all have what we need to make it through this challenging time with some security and some support. Kim, we've already spoken about the work that you're doing and the services that you're providing to folks in the Detroit community. And I'd love to just start our sort of supplementary conversation by hearing about how the current events are impacting what you do.
Well, yesterday was a really busy day. This will kind of this is a great example, and our conversation's really timed well. I got a call yesterday morning from one of our local Trader Joe's partners, and they had an electrical outage at the store. And so they walked into a store that had no power, which meant that they had to empty all of their coolers and their freezers, which they were doing at the time when they called me. So we ended up picking up yesterday 5 vanfuls of food. It was normally we pick up 1, and normally there's about 25 to 35 banana boxes of food we pick up daily from the stores we pick up from. So that all fits in one van pretty easily. And so we loaded up 5 vans, and one of those vans is the golden vehicle to pick boxes up in, because we can get so many in them, which is a Dodge Caravan. The way they engineered the inside of that vehicle, for some reason, we can get like 35 to 38 boxes in that vehicle. And we had one of those yesterday, and we got more than 38 boxes in it. So we had all of that food to work with yesterday, which was just a huge blessing, because here in Detroit, most of the businesses are closed. All the restaurants are closed. The bus lines were closed for a day, which was extremely scary because most of the people that I work with, they use the bus systems to get to and from work, which they may not be doing now, but they also use it to get to the store to get food.
Right.
And without it, they really don't have a means to do that other than walking 5 to 7 miles to the closest grocery store. So that was a scary day, but they got the buses up and running, and they're back on the streets again. So right now they're asking everybody to stay home as much as possible and to only go out to get food. And I see in the future that all the retail stores that are still open, which would be like our Targets and some of our pharmacies, I see those getting closed down. I think they're going to leave the pharmacies open so people can get meds. It's a very interesting time, and for people who are food insecure, it's a very scary time, because especially when organizations like mine are the way you get your food or get the bulk of your food every week, they need to know that we're getting ours.
Would you say that you're getting increased requests for food at this time because people are concerned, or also just some people don't have access to their normal food supplies, so they're now calling your organization and others like it?
Both and. A lot of people have gotten laid off, and so they're looking at ways to conserve money, so naturally they're going to reach out to organizations in the food space that can give them food. We have 2 really large food banks in our area, too, that are working around the clock, just like we are, to try to get as much food out into the community as we can. One of the things that's happened that's been a rather difficult thing to deal with is, for the most part, aside from yesterday, the Trader Joe's chain is America's favorite grocer. And because of that, every time a press conference is held, whether it's local or national, where they give more distressing news, everyone, especially when they start talking about sheltering in place, they're using those words. Everyone runs to Trader Joe's first, and so all the food gets gone. So they haven't donated nearly as much as they have been donating, just because they don't have the food. I mean, literally people are going in and buying 2 weeks worth of food from a grocer who's not prepared to sell that much food to every customer that walks through the door. So I've been in the store at noon when it was literally, the coolers were empty. There was nothing in them. All the food was gone that were in the coolers, and it was noon. So we've gotten fewer and fewer boxes from Trader Joe's, which has provoked me to go out and reach out to some other grocery store chains here locally to see if they can step up, and some of them are, in giving us some produce, which is really what we want. And so we're now creating some new food partners and increasing our capacity straight across the board to have more food in the community.
It's a challenging time for growth, but sometimes those necessary sort of inciting incidents can lead to a lot of great things. But a lot on your plate this week, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yesterday was like our best day ever. We served over 400 households with that food we picked up from.
That's amazing, in one day.
We also were able to pick up from another produce partner that we pick up from randomly. They just call us when they have stuff. But yesterday they had 600 pounds of mushrooms.
Wow.
A pallet and a half of mushrooms and some salad greens too. And so they called and we went and picked that up. So we used that food along with those 6 vanfuls of Trader Joe's food and got 400 boxes and bags out into the community in one day. Just to give you a point of reference, that's about what we do in a month.
Wow.
At our normal pace. And so for us to do that in one day, we had just a ton of volunteers show up in 2 locations that did all the boxing, and I'm sure there were at least 20 volunteers involved in different phases of what happened yesterday. And without them, we couldn't have done it. We just clearly could not have gotten it done.
Is there a challenge for you with having volunteers coming out, given the guidance that a lot of us are getting to sort of stay in and stay sheltered? Or do you think people are even more excited to just, of course, take precautions, but get out and be helpful?
It's the latter. It's definitely the latter. I think that people are, whether they have means to get their own food or not, they're very concerned about food in these times. And one of the things that I have done over the last 2 weeks is reach out. I'm a former minister, so I have a really deep network with the churches here in Detroit. And I reached out to quite a few different ministries that I've been involved with in some way. And what I found were people that were just ready to volunteer. They were like, we feel like we need to be doing something to help people, and we don't know what to do, and we don't know how to do it because we're being told to stay at home. I connected with a couple of them that I have pretty strong connections to already. And so we connected the volunteers from one of those churches into the volunteers opportunities that we have now. And so I don't find them to be hesitant. I find them to be discerning, and I find them to be appropriately cautious in what we do. I mean, we're wearing gloves. Some are wearing masks. We encourage that. And, we have a lot of hand sanitizer that we use. We're doing all the things that we need to do to keep ourselves safe. No one's gotten ill. The weight that people are feeling about people who are underserved and what is going to happen to them in all this upheaval outweighs the fear of contracting, especially given the circumstances. So thank God for them. Thank God that they're willing to come out. And the other thing is it's over and done with in about an hour and a half. So it's an hour and a half and you're out of there. So not prolonged contact, and no one that has any symptoms at all is on any of the teams. That's the other thing.
Of course.
Like, don't come sick. If you have the sniffles, stay home.
Yeah.
Your throat sore, stay home. If you've coughed this morning, stay home. So everyone's being wise that way.
That's great. You brought up 2 points that I'd love to dig into more. The first is the concern for food. I think you're right. It's almost like this thing that we've been taken for granted for a long time as far as access to food, those of us who have regular access to food and are privileged enough to take it for granted. Now we can't. But it's almost leading to this extreme fear about lack of food. Mm-hmm. So would you speak about how you see some of that sort of hysteria affecting the work that you do, and maybe give some recommendations for folks who do have regular access to food as far as, how to behave in this situation so that you're not taking from others who really need it?
Right. That's a great question. So I can share what's happened with Trader Joe's because I see it every day. I'm in one of our stores that we pick up from every single day. And what I'm noticing is that every time there's a press conference, whether it's a regional one or a national one, especially the national ones, where there's some sort of hint that we may go into shutdown mode, and granted, even if we did shelter in place, the grocery stores are still going to be open. They're not going to shut down the grocery stores. They can't because it's our only food source right now. And so just to calm everyone down, the grocery stores are always going to be open. They're not going to shut them down. But they make it sound like in those press conferences, because I'm listening to them, and I'm going, okay, that was not a good way to word that, because now everybody's going to run to the store right now and buy 2 weeks worth of groceries based on what you're just saying, because you're making it sound like we're going to shelter in place for 2 weeks. They can't go out of their house because that's what they're saying. You can't leave your house in shelter in place. And the reality is you can go to the grocery store. You can do that when we're in a shelter in place situation. What they're trying to do is limit contact. So they don't want you to go and stay a long time. So go and get what you need for 2 days. Get 2 or 3 days worth of food and come back. Because the impact that you have when you go and buy 2 weeks or more worth of food is that what happens, especially with Trader Joe's, because they have a much smaller footprint and they are America's favorite grocery store, when people come in and buy 2 weeks worth, by noon, all the food's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm witnessing this myself every day. And so everyone that comes in the store after 12 can't access food there. And Trader Joe's model, because I think it's a great model, by the way, for a grocery store. I would love to see more grocers go to Trader Joe's model, go to a smaller footprint and make it easier and faster to shop in the stores. I think we're headed that way. I think it's a much more efficient way to do grocery retail anyway. But they do this model really well. The downside of it is that I've been talking to the store managers about, I've been saying to them, well, can you increase your PARs so that you can get more to account for this? And they're like, no, because in order to increase our PARs, we have to know we can produce that food. And so what
are PARs, if you don't mind, just for the layperson?
PARs are what all retail stores use PARs to know how many units of an item to have on a shelf at a given time. And they base that on their sales, their monthly sales of that item. That's why when we go to the store, just about every time we're there, they always have what we need, and they have more than one of what we need. And it's based on PARs, and those are computer generated every week. And so the managers or whoever does the ordering for the store takes the PARs, and you have a PAR that's set. You should always have this number. And then you do a weekly inventory and you count how many you actually have on the day before you order. And then you adjust that par if you need to account for maybe a little bit of overbuying that people are doing on that item, so that you always have the amount you're supposed to have in the store. But in Trader Joe's case, they build their own products. So it's not like they can call Del Monte and order 5 more pallets. They actually have to make those pallets. And so it becomes very difficult when there's an uptick in the purchasing like there is now, with people going in and buying 2 weeks worth of food because they're afraid that the store's going to close, that then they can't even catch up on the production side. There's no way they can build those products fast enough. And so what needs to happen that would help adjust that is if people came in and just bought a couple days worth of groceries, 2 or 3 days, and come back in 2 or 3 days. And that may be a hassle, but hey, we have a lot of downtime right now. So from a time standpoint, we should be able to handle this. And what it allows is for more people to have access in the store you're shopping in, so that food lasts longer. There's more food past noon for the people who come in the afternoon to buy. There's actually food for them there. And it puts some ease back into Trader Joe's system so they can actually serve more people, serve more households. And that's just a simple thing that we can all do to help us all have food.
Right. And also, in addition to benefiting other shoppers, of course, it benefits food donation collectors like you, who rely on extras. Right. Yeah. It almost sounds like something that could be encouraging, depending on how you look at it. Where we're living in this world where everything feels so different, there's one thing that can stay consistent. There's one thing that we can rely on, which is the food supply. We can rely on these grocery stores to be there for us. So if we can allow that to be kind of a focal point of, all right, that's good, I don't have to worry about that, even amidst all this other chaos, it could be a point of positivity.
And to think, too, it's a simple way that we can be community together and take care of each other. Fear has a way, and I've listened here in the States to some of the national press conferences that they've done, and I wish they would bring more care into the way they present what they're saying, so that they can bring some peace to people instead of inciting fear, because fear has us do ridiculously selfish things. And what we need to be as a community is caring and giving towards each other. The minute we become selfish, we isolate ourselves. And that's a choice. We can choose to not be that. We can choose to say, this makes a lot of sense what this one from Detroit's saying. I'm going to buy 2 days worth of groceries every time I go to the store, go more often because I can. I have the time, I can do that. And in doing that, I'm creating the opportunity for someone else to walk into the store and find their favorite item that will give them some comfort during this time. And even though you may never meet that person, there's still a warmth and a good feeling that you have about yourself, of sharing, of cooperating, of being a good human being, walking the face of the planet, and caring about the other people in your community. And that quality, as we all express it, will be the thing that we remember the most coming out of this crisis, other than lives saved. That's ultimately the most important thing. But what we'll remember the most and cherish is that we came together and we supported each other and were generous to each other and cared for each other.
And maybe realizing that there doesn't have to be fear that we will go without, that we can rely on each other. If somehow you run out or your neighbor runs out, there'll be someone there to fill that gap for them. And if we can begin to believe that more, so that there's less pressure and less separation of I need what I need and never mind about anybody else, that could also just change a lot of things, a lot of aspects about our society and how we interact with each other, I think.
Yes. I think when I go into Trader Joe's and look at the food, I'm already thinking about sharing it. There's something that comes inside of me that relates to the work I do, obviously, where I'm like, I always think there's enough to share. And I think that our communities could do well by adapting more to that mentality and dropping our fear. But I'm totally aware that fear doesn't just go away because you want it to. That fear goes away because you've created trust with someone, you've built a relationship with them, and And it takes time and energy, effort to do that.
Yeah, but it is available to all of us.
Absolutely, and totally worth it. Completely worth it.
And the second point that I mentioned earlier that you hit on already is people want to feel like they can do something. People want to feel like they can help, but being stuck at home, not everybody knows how. So from where you sit, what can people do?
Well, there's always the donation to any nonprofit, especially any nonprofit doing food. And of course, you can donate to my nonprofit. If you aren't connected to someone, we would gladly receive your donation and need it. I think that too, we've got a core of volunteers that are going out and doing these food distributions. We had a group of volunteers that came yesterday. I will say this, that crew of volunteers yesterday that put 400 bags and boxes of food out into Detroit, they were one happy group of people at the end of the day. And there was something that also was very life-giving. In the midst of this huge crisis that we're all in together, like all of us globally, we're in this together. And there's something about, even in that, of saying, I'm going to help someone. I'm going to help someone in a way that I can, that is also very connecting and joyful, which joy is a good thing to have around. Joy is a good thing to have. Peace is a good thing to have. And all of those things happen within this context of giving of yourself. And I would just say, be creative, like think outside the box, So you may not be able to physically do something with a group of people, but what can you do? Do one good, happy thing a day that brings you joy. Whether you're doing a conversation like the one we're having today, with a friend, use Facebook Live. I've done that. I've connected with some friends on Facebook Live just to have a 20-minute conversation. Just say, hey, I love you, thinking about you. Hope everything's good in Alabama, where you are today. Just reach out, do something outside of yourself every single day that does some good in the world, does good for even just one person in the world. Because there's a reciprocal effect that comes back that validates me as a human being, that makes me feel good about being here. And we need that because some of the other stuff we're dealing with, certainly all the press that we're dealing with right now, can really put you in a funk. I mean, it's sad, it's hard, it's intense. And we need to balance that out with some goodness.
Yeah, I think that's so key. Get outside of yourself, and you'll often find that your problems shrink almost immediately. Absolutely.
And giving of yourself, the thing that I think a lot of people, if you take to heart everything you're hearing of isolating, being by yourself, okay, we get that from a physical standpoint, but on an emotional standpoint, on an intellectual standpoint, on a relationship standpoint, those don't work. Isolation never works. And so we get that physically we need to be away from the germs that could make us sick and potentially take our lives. Get that. But on every other level, we can look at how to be creative to stay connected and to continue to do good things in the earth, especially now when we need it so much. And we've got amazing technology that people didn't have. I've thought, there have been other pandemics like this that we did not have the communication system we have now, and how people must have lived with just such tremendous fear and helplessness. And we don't have to be those people. So we should choose to not be those people.
Yes.
And engage in ways that we can, and encourage people and be encouraged by people.
Absolutely.
Have conversations. Look for the beautiful part of every day. Create the beautiful part in every day for ourselves, because we can.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for everything you're doing. And of course, for anybody who's listening, check out Eden Gives at their website, edengives.org. You can donate if you're in the Detroit area. You can volunteer. Find organizations like Eden Gives where you are. If you want to get out and volunteer with food donation programs, there is something you can do. Mm-hmm. So, thanks, Kim.
Thanks so much, Nathan.
I think my biggest takeaway from talking with Kim today is how she described the response of her volunteers in the midst of everything that's been going on. Her team didn't shy away from their ability to do something, to support their communities. They didn't let their fear stop them. They chose to step up and serve anyway. I think there's something so empowering about braving difficult times by serving others. Who has time to feel afraid or disappointed about recent events when they're focused on the immediate needs of someone else? Which takes us right into Changemaker number 1 for today's episode. When we take care of others, we take care of ourselves. Gandhi put it this way: the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And Barack Obama put it this way: the best way to not feel hopeless is to get up and do something. I've found that it's impossible to feel sorry for myself when I'm focused on helping somebody else. This has been without exception. On some of my worst days, I've focused on something outside of me, whether that's supporting someone else or working on a project that I really believe in, or reaching out to a friend or family member to check in and say hello. Sometimes it means that I end up sharing about what I'm experiencing if I'm having a rough day or a rough moment. But honestly, the best remedy in my experience is to just forget all about myself and focus on the other person. Focus on whoever I'm serving. I'm not trying to sound self-righteous, and I'm not always good at doing this, honestly. Sometimes I think about it 2 hours after I've been feeling bad, and then I do something to turn it around. But it's an option that we all have available to us, and I'm telling you, it works every time. Focusing on what we can do for someone else reminds us how much we have and that we're in a position to offer something to someone else, which I think just kind of dissolves all of the feelings of inadequacy or lack or worry a lot of the time, just because we realize, wow, I'm actually okay. This other person needs something from me that I can provide, and I'm in a position to give it. All's good. I think if we can allow a difficult situation like the current crisis, as people are calling it, that we're experiencing, to motivate us to serve instead of getting caught up in the worry and the fear of it, we'll learn so much about ourselves and we'll have such a stronger sense of gratitude for all the things in our lives that we normally would take for granted. And that brings me to Changemaker number 2, based on today's conversation. We get to choose how to respond to a crisis, and the choices we make impact others. This is true not just in a crisis, but it's true across the board. We get to choose how to respond to anything and everything, and the choice that we make as far as how we respond to life does impact others around us. As it relates to today's conversation, there's no question that this is an anxious time for all of us. There's so many unknowns, but the importance of staying calm and trusting that we will have what we need cannot be overstated. Not just for our own well-being and our ability to navigate this difficult time without constant stress hanging over our heads, which negatively impacts our immune system, by the way, but also because of how our individual behavior impacts others. As Kim highlighted, when we're worried about having enough or having the necessities and we act out of fear and buy more than we need, that means that we're actually taking something from someone else a lot of the time, or we're making it more challenging for the stores to restock the items that everybody does need. If we can choose to stay calm and be mindful of others rather than acting out of fear, I think we'll discover that we'll never be without what we truly need, and others will have the same experience because we're all being mindful of each other, making sure that we're all provided for, which is a much better mindset to be in. Which, again, just so happens to be a really nice segue into Changemaker number 3 for today. Number 3, challenges can separate us or bring us together. Said another way, we can act out of fear, which separates us and often makes us feel lonely, defensive, protective of ourselves or those close to us, or we can act out of a sense of caring and a sense of commitment to our communities, which brings us together, makes sure that one person who might be lacking can get what they need from someone else who has more than enough. When we're mindful of each other and we're talking to each other about what we're experiencing, we open that door for exchange and for someone who needs a little more of something to get it from someone who has it. Let's let ourselves be ruled by that caring for each other during this time. Let's choose to allow this experience to grow our sense of community and connectedness and compassion for others. and to commit ourselves to never allowing anyone else around us to feel like they don't have access to what they need, no matter what, so that they can feel healthy and secure. Let's commit to making sure that everyone around us feels certain that they'll have what they need when it comes to food, when it comes to healthcare and support, when it comes to medicine, when it comes to necessities like toilet paper, which we're all thinking about and talking about a lot these days. Check in with your neighbor, your cousin or uncle or aunt who lives nearby. Ask if they have what they need, and offer to make a trip to the grocery store for them if they need it, or bring a little extra of something that you have to them if they need it. And then when you need something and you didn't plan ahead quite as well as you could have, somebody can have your back. As Kim said, we're all in this together. And that's true locally in our own communities and also globally with this current situation. It's impacting the entire world. Blame and fear about scarcity won't serve us, now or in the future, no matter what the circumstances are. Let's write a new story about who we are after this chapter that highlights something new in how we approach each day, how we believe ourselves to be, with care and concern built into our mindset for our collective well-being, with a greater sense of trust, and with a renewed sense that we can be better, we can support each other. So what can you do today? Well, I think that's up to you. I think the question of what we can each do to make the world a little better, a little calmer, a little more sane, a little more peaceful is up to each of us to decide. And it's an important thing to ask ourselves on a regular basis, not just because so many people really do need our support right now, but also because it helps us to focus less on the difficulty and on the challenges in our own lives. So what can you do today? Ask yourself what you can do today, and then take action. It can be the simplest thing, but do something. Same with our challenge for this episode. We'll leave it up to you to decide what you can do over the next 2 weeks before our next episode to make a positive impact. Do what you feel is in your power, in your circle of influence, which reflects who you are and what you have to offer. Maybe that's just posting an uplifting post on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter on a regular basis. Maybe that's reaching out to a neighbor to check in. Find some way to serve someone else. Maybe you make time to catch up with a friend or family member who lives alone and could use some social time. Or donate some of your canned foods or jarred goods to a local food shelter. Maybe you know someone who lost their job and you happen to be really well connected to someone at another company who might be able to help them out or give them some guidance or mentorship. Whatever feels right for you. And be sure to notice how it makes you feel when you start to think about how you can build someone else up. I hope and I think you'll find that it distracts you from your own worries, your own concerns, which we all have, every single one of us, without exception right now. And I hope that it brings a little welcome and positive distraction into the next 2 weeks for you. If you'd like to support Eden Gives and the important work that they're doing, and you live in the Detroit area, visit edengives.org to sign up as a volunteer. If you don't live in Detroit and you'd like to support their work, consider donating at edengives.org. Your donations will go straight to building greater delivery programs for fresh food to families who need it. If you have proficiency with technology and you'd like to support Eden Gives from a technological standpoint, using your technical skills, it would be very welcome. Reach out to them by going to their website and grabbing their direct contact. Today, I want to leave you with something that Kim shared during our first conversation, actually, about how she stays strong through adversity. I felt it fit perfectly here, and I really wanted to take this opportunity to light you up with the fire that Kim has found in her work, the fire that comes from serving others despite setbacks and exhaustion and worry about your own success or your own failure, your own stuff. I hope Kim's words will inspire and energize you the way they do for me. And please continue to stay safe and stay connected to those you care about out there. And stay connected to strangers too. Just connect. I really think that's the key right now. Catch you in a couple weeks. Take care until then.
There's been so many barriers. Oh my gosh. So many barriers for 13, 14 years along this pathway. But I know I'm here to do this work. Like, I am in my purpose. Every day I know I am living out the reason why I'm walking the planet at this time. And it's joyous work, even though it's sometimes difficult, sad, hard. I'm happy every morning to get out of bed. I always look forward to starting work. And I wouldn't change, I wouldn't stop, I wouldn't give up for anything. Because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And the thing that's so beautiful is, Mike, I got repaired and am getting repaired in the midst of the work that does it for someone else. That's beautiful stuff right there.